Melanie McFarlane, Principal Migration Consultant at MM Migration, and today I have the pleasure of introducing Jesus Fernandez, who's one of our long-term clients, and we're very happy for him because he's just received his citizenship. Congratulations,
yes.
Jesus.
I got it.
And Jesus is also an amazing leadership consultant and has worked for the likes of companies such as Cisco, Google, Telstra, and many others. So today, Jesus and I are discussing the subject of employer sponsorship. I'd love, Jesus, if you could give me from your point of view, because you yourself have been sponsored by an employer here in Australia, what do you think are the reasons that an employer would or should sponsor a skilled person from overseas?
Hey, thank you, Melanie. And thanks for all the work you've done with, it's been pretty awesome to get the citizenship with you guys. Okay, so I think in my experience, when I see people that are coming from overseas and a company sponsoring them, at least with my own personal case and with I see with friends or with clients, I think they have to know that they're participating in something that's just much greater than just an employment contract. You know, I think it's about these people are coming to a new country, they're changing their culture, and so because of that, I do feel like they come in with an extra level of energy. I wouldn't say it's better, I just say it's different, and you might want to have some of this energy in your company because they're much more, I've seen them, at least with myself and with other people, they're super enthusiastic. You know, they're enthusiastic about moving countries, about everything's new. You know, they've got the energy of starting somewhere, and they'll bring all that energy, which is specific kind of energy, to your company. You might not want everybody to be like this, but it is cool. You can even place them in key areas of growth in your company, and they'll bring all of that change and energy with them. Because especially they also bring a different perspective. We always talk about diversity, and sponsoring someone is a really good way to get them. You're getting someone from that has never been in Australia before. They just don't know the culture here, so they're bringing in their know-how, all their education that they got. Like in my case, I got a pretty good education overseas, and I just brought all that talent to this country. And I always feel like probably my own government missed out, you know, and plus with the taxpayer money and everything, all the companies there, they just missed out because I'm getting educated there, but I'm bringing that talent here.
Spain's loss was Australia's gain, I think.
Maybe a little bit like that, yeah. But then you get because a lot of, like, it's not that, for example, for me, I came in 2008 when the crisis hit, and I didn't actually come because of that reason, but I did see that it was a big benefit for me to be here. During that time, Australia didn't suffer as much, and so there was plenty of employment here. And so in a way, you also become more, maybe not more hardworking. There's plenty of hardworking Australians, but you really do try because you want to stay, right? You want to stay here and make the most out of being here.
Yes, yeah. And on that note, with regards to staying, do you think also, because the reality is when you apply for a sponsored visa, you have to stay with that employer, don't you?
Yes.
Do you think that makes a difference? Do you think that's the only reason why people will stay with the company, and so that's why employers should sponsor?
Right.
Because there is, you know, the risk that people could feel trapped by that visa or what have
Right.
you. What would you say about that, actually?
Right.
Because I think it's something that needs to be talked about.
Yeah, so because I see both, right? In my clients, I see that sometimes people wait until the visa is over and then they leave. In my case, I actually stayed. Like I'm still with them, and this is because I think not being able to leave made it so that I had to make it work. And then you end up finding that, you know what, you can make it work. You know, it's not it's if there are any problems that it's like a marriage. Like it is much more like a marriage. So you might, instead of quitting the first time or you're committed to this company, so you just find a way to make it work. And I actually think that's a strength. You know, if people actually push through, you'll find that you can actually do it. You can. There's multiple benefits for both parties involved.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Or for the companies that are sponsoring, it's kind of like a marriage. You do have to make sure that the person is a beautiful person that you're bringing in.
Yes.
And that they're going to be there for a while, you know. So make sure it's like your top talent that you're bringing in. You might even want to reserve some of those spaces for immigrants, because they're going to stay for a bit.
Right. Well, I mean, we are facing a war on talent, aren't we? You know, around the world, and Australia is certainly part of that.
Yeah.
And I think it's an interesting point that you've made about employers. So it comes down to obviously recruiting well and bringing in somebody who really is talented. And these days, it's very hard not to recruit someone who's really skilled because of the requirements of the visa itself, and the skill requirements. But also I think it's about, I guess from the point of view of the employer, it's about having the attitude that you're not going to exploit that person, but that you're going to treat them well, and as such you'll receive.
Yeah, you'll benefit. Especially if it's your top talent.
Return.
Especially if it's your top talent.
Yes.
Of course you have to treat them well.
Yes.
But they're going to give you much more in return, right?
Yes.
For you as an agent, you know, because there's a lot of changes that have been happening since I even got since I did my employer sponsorship.
Yes.
Like there's things that I hear like it's more expensive now, or that it's really hard to do. And I don't know, because for us it wasn't that hard to actually do to go through the process, maybe because we used you guys. But can you comment a little bit on that, or?
Yeah, of course. I mean, the reality is it's more expensive these days, there's no doubt. There's the Skilling Australians Fund, which came in August 2018, and it means that companies now have to pay a training contribution fee to the Australian government just for the privilege of sponsoring.
What the training goes to who?
And so that training, that Skilling Australians Fund is all about training and upskilling young Australians.
Right.
So that's where that money is supposed to go, and that's how it's supposed to be utilised. So any sponsorship now that takes place, that money has to be paid, and it varies according to the length of the sponsorship, the occupation itself, whether it's for a long-term visa or a short-term visa, because of course now not all employer-sponsored visas go directly to permanent residents and so on. So there's no doubt it is more expensive these days. It is more difficult. Immigration, I think, not just in Australia but around the world, is probably more complex these days. So obviously it's even more important that you do want to be recruiting your top talent and what have you. But if you're going to sponsor, yes, you want to nurture that person and that talent within your business. And likewise, I think, as you've said yourself, and we've had many conversations about this, that the sponsored employee also has a level of gratitude too. I think you would agree.
Yes, I think so. I think because you're participating in much more than just, like I said, like employment contract. You're bringing people in. It's a whole life journey to change the country. And for example, with the company that has sponsored me and the CEO, they're like, and even the CFO, that the person that did all the paperwork. Like, I loved it. Like I am so grateful to them to have done, and we did it together, actually. But they've become just part of my life, in not just as professional colleagues, but just because now they introduced me to the Australian culture, and they played an ambassador role in Australia with me and everything. It was just so much more than an employment contract. So there's a lot of gratitude, and I almost feel like sometimes I know even more about the Australian than the Australians about Australia, and I'm much more grateful for the country because I know what it's like to come right. Can I ask you though, specifically with the cost bit, what is the average cost that people somebody like us in business would face right now to sponsor someone?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. I mean, you could be looking at, it depends, of course, if somebody's bringing family as well, because that costs more too, but you could be looking at around between $10,000, $12,000 up to $15,000 to sponsor somebody.
And you do it, but then they stay for 4 years, really, as a minimum,
would stay
right?
for 4 years depending on their occupation, or 2 years and then a further 2 years. So the 2-year visa is obviously going to be less expensive than a 4-year visa, and it's also less expensive if it's a short-term occupation as opposed to a long-term occupation, which is deemed to be even more highly skilled and more highly in demand in Australia.
Right.
So that's how it works.
So I think, like, as a business person, we really have to look at that. Yes, for like mid to top talent in the company, and you really want to make sure that you're able to get that kind of return back. So I don't think it's a lot of money. Depends on what the position is, right?
Yes.
If someone's in sales or someone
Yes.
that they could like, for example, for me, I was in sales.
Yes.
So like the company made way more money than what they paid in the visa
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah,
I
that's
think
right.
it was
That's
easily
good.
justifiable, as an investment. It didn't. I mean, it was just a small percentage of what I ended up gaining in revenue back, or profit. But that's where you have to look at. Yes, it has to be the more you're looking at a middle manager, or and hire to get
Yes.
them in to be able to justify that cost.
Yes.
And then knowing that yes, that person's gonna stay with you
Yes.
for a while.
Yes.
And so, investing them is not just the visa, but also I remember they helped me with my accent, for example, at the beginning, right? Like it was just a whole investment, and I ended up staying with them for 8 years. So it paid off, no problem.
Absolutely.
You really want to have that long-term view, and it does work. Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, well that's great. Thank you so much.
So thank you for
Jesus.
having me here,
Wonderful.
and I want to say actually thank you to everybody at Migration for helping me with all the process and the citizenship that I got. Thank you.